Arctic air is moving into position. Winter storms are tracking across the northern tier, and the pattern we've been watching is about to deliver on its promise. Let's break down what's happening and what you need to know. Right now, the temperature contrast across North America couldn't be more dramatic. Northern Alaska is experiencing wind chills of 66 degrees below zero. That's not a typo. Minus 66. Temperature anomalies there are running 50 degrees below normal. This is the coldest air on the continent, and it's been bottled up in the Arctic for weeks. Meanwhile, much of the western United States has been dealing with unseasonably warm conditions. Idaho has seen one of the warmest winters in over a century. Temperatures that should be in the 20s have been running in the 40s and 50s. It's been frustrating for those who depend on winter weather, whether for skiing, snowmobiling, or simply the natural rhythm of the seasons. That's about to change. The tropospheric polar vortex currently centered over Alaska is shifting position. By January 20th, 1 week from today, that vortex will establish itself over Hudson Bay in eastern Canada. When that happens, the cold air source for North America moves from the far north into a position where it can directly impact the United States. This isn't speculation. The meteorological setup is clear across multiple forecast models. The European model, the American GFS, and the Canadian models all show this pattern developing. When you see that kind of agreement at 7 to 10 days out, you pay attention. Let's talk about what's happening right now, because current conditions set the stage for what's coming. Across southeast Canada, a winter storm is moving through Ontario and Quebec. This isn't a blockbuster event. We're looking at 3 to 5 inches of snow across most areas. Some localized bands could see 6 to 8 inches, particularly in the higher elevations. The storm is bringing hazardous travel conditions, snow-covered roads, reduced visibility, standard winter weather for that region, but it requires attention if you are traveling. The more significant story is the lake effect snow that's developing across the Great Lakes region. Western Lower Michigan and Northwest Indiana are seeing the first bands set up. By Wednesday morning, these lake effect snow bands will be cranking. We're talking about potential snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour in the heaviest bands. Lake effect snow is deceptive. You can drive 5 miles and go from clear roads to whiteout conditions. The snow falls in very narrow corridors, sometimes just a few miles wide. If you live in these areas, you know the drill. But it's worth emphasizing, conditions can deteriorate rapidly. What looks like a clear day can turn into a travel nightmare in minutes. Western New York, the traditional snowbelt areas around Erie and Buffalo, will see similar conditions. Upstate New York from Watertown down through the Tug Hill Plateau should prepare for significant accumulations. Some of these lake effect bands could drop 12 to 15 inches in isolated locations. That's enough to cause serious travel disruptions. By Thursday, watch how far south the snow line extends. We could see snow showers pushing into North Carolina, parts of Raleigh, possibly Charlotte, the Virginia Beach area, Delaware, Atlantic City. These aren't major snow events for these locations, but any snow in these areas typically causes issues. Roads aren't treated the same way they are up north. Drivers aren't as experienced with winter conditions. A couple inches of snow in North Carolina has more impact than 6 inches in Minnesota. The storm system moves quickly. By Thursday afternoon, it's off the coast and into the Atlantic, but it sets the stage for what follows. Here's where the pattern gets interesting. We have multiple clipper systems lined up ready to move across the northern United States. These are fast-moving storm systems that drop out of Canada, bringing bursts of snow and cold air. Individually, none of these clippers looks like a major storm, but they recoming in succession, one after another, reinforcing the cold air and adding to snowfall totals. The first clipper moves through Friday, another one this weekend. Then we re-watching additional systems for early next week. Each one brings its own swath of snow, typically 2 to 4 inches, sometimes more in favored locations. Add them together over a week and you're looking at significant accumulations across the northern tier. Now, there's been discussion about a potential major storm for the Northeast this weekend. I need to be straight with you about this. The pattern doesn't support a big coastal storm right now. Last week, some of the models were hinting at a phasing setup where the northern jet stream and southern jet stream would come together, creating a major nor'easter. That decreased significantly in the forecast guidance. What we more likely seeing is a progressive pattern. storm systems moving quickly across the country without much time to organize or intensify. For the coastal areas from Boston down through New York City, Philadelphia, and into the mid-Atlantic, this means you'll probably see some snow. But we're talking snow showers and light accumulations, not a major snowstorm. 2 to 4 inches at most, possibly less near the immediate coast. I know that's disappointing for snow enthusiasts in those areas. Some of you haven't seen a significant snowstorm in years. The pattern keeps teasing but not delivering for the major coastal cities. That continues for now. However, the cold air is very real. And that's what I want to focus on next. Wednesday morning brings the first shot of Arctic air into the eastern United States. This is a preview of what's coming. Wind chills will drop below 0 across parts of Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. 5 to 15 below 0 for wind chills. Is that unusual for mid-January in Minnesota? No. But you still need to prepare appropriately. Exposed skin can develop frostbite in those conditions within 30 minutes. The cold air moderates slightly by Thursday as we get a brief warm-up, but then the real Arctic blast arrives this weekend. Sunday morning, January 18th, will be particularly cold. Temperature anomalies could run 20 to 25 degrees below normal across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley. Let's put some specific numbers on this. Chicago, Sunday morning game time temperatures will be around -5 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chills near 0 or just below. If you are heading to Soldier Field for the Bears and Rams playoff game, dress in layers. Multiple thin layers trap heat better than one thick coat. Cover all exposed skin. Bring hand and foot warmers if you have them. This isn't just a Chicago story. Minneapolis could see actual air temperatures in the -10 to -15 range Sunday morning with wind chills approaching -30. That's dangerous cold. Limit time outdoors. Check on elderly neighbors. Make sure your vehicle is winterized and you have an emergency kit if you have to travel. The cold extends eastward into New England. Boston, Hartford, Providence will see temperatures in the teens with wind chills in the single digits. New York City, Philadelphia, down into Washington, D.C., you are looking at temperatures in the low 20s with wind chills around 10 degrees. For the southern states, the Arctic air doesn't penetrate as deeply, at least not initially. The Gulf Coast from Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama will see temperatures drop, but we're talking about highs in the 40s and 50s rather than the 60s and 70s you've been experiencing. It'll feel cold compared to recent conditions, but it's not the same Arctic blast the North is getting. This cold air sticks around. Monday and Tuesday of next week reinforce the cold pattern. We're looking at sustained below normal temperatures across much of the eastern 2/3 of the country through at least January 22nd or 23rd. Now let's talk about what happens after that, because this is where the forecast gets particularly interesting. The last week of January shows strong signals for a significant pattern change. Multiple factors are coming together that suggest an active period for winter weather. First, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, the MJO, is moving into phases 7 and 8. For those unfamiliar, the MJO is a tropical phenomenon that influences global weather patterns. When it's in phases 7, 8, 1, and 2, North America typically sees colder than normal temperatures and more active storm systems. We're re-entering that favorable phase at the end of January. Second, as I mentioned earlier, the tropospheric polar vortex sets up over Hudson Bay. That puts the coldest air in a prime position to funnel southward into the United States. It's like opening the freezer door. The cold air spills out and heads south. Third, we have indications of a strengthening Kelvin wave moving across the Pacific Ocean. This can activate the subtropical jet stream, which has been largely absent this winter. The subtropical jet is crucial because it taps into moisture from the Pacific and the Gulf of Mexico. Without it, we get cold and dry conditions. With it, we get cold and snowy conditions. Big difference. Put these pieces together, and the pattern from January 24th through January 31st looks favorable for winter storms. The European Extended Ensemble model shows this. The American GFS Extended Ensemble shows this. They not in perfect agreement on specifics, but they aligned on the overall pattern. The areas most likely to see accumulating snow during this period: the Central Plains, the Ohio Valley, parts of the Midwest, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast coastal areas, including the I-95 corridor from Washington to Boston. Does this guarantee a major snowstorm? No. We're still 13 to 18 days out. That's too far for specific predictions, but it's not too far to identify favorable patterns, and this pattern looks favorable. I want to emphasize something important here. I am not forecasting specific snow totals for late January. Anyone who gives you exact snow amounts 2 weeks out is not being honest with you. What I am doing is showing you the trends in the long-range models and explaining why those trends make meteorological sense. Some of you will see comments or other forecasts talking about specific snow amounts for events that are 10 or 15 days away. Take those with a large grain of salt. The purpose of looking at extended models is to identify patterns and trends, not to make precise predictions. Think of it this way. If you're replanning a vacation 2 weeks from now, the long-range forecast can tell you whether to expect winter weather or spring-like conditions. It can tell you whether it'll snow on Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning, or whether you'll get 6 inches or 12 inches. That level of detail requires short-range models, and those are only reliable about 3 to 5 days out. What we can say with reasonable confidence is that the late January period looks colder and more active than what we've experienced so far this winter across much of the country. Let me address some regional specifics because I know many of you are wondering about your particular area. For the Northern Rockies and Northern Plains, you've been dealing with extreme temperature swings this winter. One day in the 50s, the next day near zero. That whiplash pattern has been tough. People report sinus issues, headaches, general fatigue from the constant adjustment. The pattern stabilizes somewhat as we move into late January, with more sustained cold rather than these wild swings. The Pacific Northwest has seen an unusually warm and dry winter so far. Seattle, Portland, areas that typically see rain and mountain snow have been remarkably quiet. The extended outlook doesn't show dramatic changes for the immediate future. This dry pattern is concerning for snowpack levels in the Cascades and other mountain ranges. Water supply could be an issue come summer if this continues. For the interior West, including Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico, the forecast becomes more interesting late in the month. There are hints that storm systems could start tapping into Pacific moisture and bringing snow to the Rockies. It's not a strong signal yet, but it's worth watching. These areas desperately need snowpack for water resources. The Southwest, including Arizona and Southern California, likely remains dry and mild through the end of January. Some cooler air may brush northern Arizona, but significant precipitation looks unlikely. Moving to the central United States, the late January period looks active for winter weather. Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, down into Oklahoma and northern Texas, this region could see multiple storm systems. Again, we're talking about patterns, not specific storms, but the setup favors snow and ice potential. The Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley have been relatively quiet this winter. That changes. Cold air will be readily available late in the month. If moisture arrives, and the pattern suggests it will, this region could see significant winter weather. Ice is always a concern when you get storm systems moving through this area in late January. The temperature profiles often set up in that marginal range where you get freezing rain instead of snow. For the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, there's cautious optimism for winter weather enthusiasts. The pattern looks more favorable than it has in weeks. Whether that translates to actual snowstorms depends on storm tracks and timing, which we want to know until we are much closer. But at least the ingredients are coming together. The Southeast and Gulf Coast will remain on the warm edge of most systems. You'll feel the cold air compared to recent conditions, but major winter weather is less likely in these areas. That said, if a storm system develops in the right position, northern parts of Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia could see winter precipitation. Now let's talk about practical preparations, because that's what matters most. For those in the northern tier from the Dakotas through Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and into upstate New York and northern New England, you are looking at persistent cold and recurring snow events. Make sure your home heating system is functioning properly. If you use a furnace, when was the last time you changed the filter? Dirty filters reduce efficiency and can cause system failures at the worst possible time. Check your insulation, particularly in attics and basements. Heat loss through poor insulation costs money and makes it harder to keep your home comfortable. Pay attention to pipes in unheated areas. When temperatures drop below zero and stay there for days, pipes can freeze even in areas where it's not usually a problem. Let faucets drip slightly during the coldest nights. It keeps water moving and reduces freeze risk. Stock up on essentials. Not panic buying, just practical preparation. Make sure you have food that doesn't require cooking in case of power outages. Batteries for flashlights. Necessary medications. If you use medical equipment that requires electricity, know your backup plan. For vehicle preparation, now is the time if you haven't already. Check your antifreeze levels. Make sure your battery is in good condition. Cold weather kills marginal batteries. Keep your gas tank at least half full. Not only does this give you more range if you get stranded, but it also prevents moisture from forming in your fuel lines. Keep an emergency kit in your vehicle. Blankets, non-perishable food, water, flashlight, first aid kit, ice scraper, small shovel. If you get stuck in a snowbank or slide off the road, these items can make a huge difference. And yes, that old trick about keeping cat litter in your trunk still works. It provides weight over the rear wheels for traction, and you can spread it under your tires if you get stuck. For those in areas that typically see much winter weather, preparation is equally important, but looks different. If you are in the Gulf Coast region and temperatures are forecast to drop into the 30s or below, protect outdoor faucets and exposed pipes. Bring sensitive plants indoors. If you have citrus trees or other vegetation that's not cold hardy, cover them if possible. Most people in Florida, southern Texas, southern Louisiana own heavy winter coats, and that's understandable. If you need to be outside in temperatures in the 30s with wind, multiple thin layers work better than trying to find winter gear you will use once a year. A long sleeve shirt, a fleece or sweatshirt, and a windbreaker on top will keep you more comfortable than a single jacket. For everyone, regardless of location, check on elderly neighbors and relatives. Older adults are more vulnerable to cold-related health issues. They may not heat their homes adequately due to cost concerns. They may not recognize the early signs of hypothermia. A quick check-in, a phone call, can make a real difference. If you have pets that spend time outdoors, bring them in during extreme cold. Dogs and cats can develop frostbite on their paws, ears, and tails. If you have livestock, make sure they have adequate shelter and access to unfrozen water. Heated water buckets are worth the investment if you in an area with persistent cold. Let me address some of the frustration I know many of you are feeling because it comes through clearly when people talk about this winter. For those in the Northeast who have been waiting for snow, I understand the disappointment. When you go 2 or 3 years without a significant snowstorm and you keep seeing forecasts that hint at potential only to have those storms miss or weaken, it's frustrating. I am not going to promise you something I can deliver. What I will say is that the late January pattern looks more favorable than anything we've seen so far this winter. For those in the West dealing with warm, dry conditions, this isn't just about missing out on winter recreation, though that's certainly part of it. It is about water supply. It's about fire risk. A warm, dry winter sets the stage for problems later in the year. The outlook doesn't show dramatic improvement in the immediate future, but there are hints of pattern changes as we move toward February. For those dealing with temperature whiplash, I hear you. When you go from 70 degrees to 30 degrees and back to 50 degrees all in the same week, it takes a toll. People report being sick for weeks, sinus problems, migraines. It's not in your head. These rapid temperature swings are hard on the human body. The good news is that as we move into late January, the pattern shows more stability, even if that stability means sustained cold. Some of you are tired of winter altogether. You are ready for spring. I get it. Winter is hard, especially as we age. The cold is harder on joints. Snow and ice create fall risks. Heating costs add up. If you counting down the days until spring, you are not alone. We're about 10 weeks from the spring equinox. We'll get there. Let's talk about what to watch over the next week. Wednesday and Thursday, keep an eye on lake effect snow if you're in the traditional snow belts. These bands can produce impressive snowfall totals in very localized areas. School closings, road closures, these are all possible in the hardest hit locations. Friday into the weekend, the focus shifts to the cold. Sunday morning will be the coldest for most areas. If you have any outdoor activities planned, adjust your expectations and your clothing accordingly. This is legitimate winter cold, the kind that demands respect. Early next week, Monday the 19th through Wednesday the 21st, we continue with the cold pattern and watch for additional clipper systems bringing snow to the northern states. Then we move into the late January period, January 24th through the end of the month, where the pattern becomes more active and potentially more favorable for winter weather across a broader area. I'll continue updating as we move closer to these timeframes. Short-range models will provide better detail as we get within 3 to 5 days of any particular system. A few final thoughts. Weather forecasting has improved dramatically over the decades, but it's not perfect. We can identify patterns and trends with good confidence 7 to 10 days out. We can make reasonable predictions about specific weather events 3 to 5 days out. Beyond that, we're relooking at probabilities and possibilities, not certainties. When you see forecasts that claim to know exactly what will happen 2 weeks from now, be skeptical. The atmosphere is a chaotic system. Small changes in initial conditions can lead to big changes in outcomes. That is not a limitation of the science, it is the nature of the system we're trying to predict. What we can do, and what I try to do, is give you the best information available at any given time, explain the reasoning behind it, and update as conditions change. Some patterns are more certain than others, some forecasts have higher confidence than others. I'll always try to be clear about that. The overall message for the next 2 weeks: cold air is coming, and it's sticking around for a while. Multiple chances for snow across the northern United States and southern Canada. The potential for more significant winter weather late in the month across a broader area of the country. Prepare appropriately for your location. Stay informed as conditions develop. And take care of yourself and those around you. Winter is here, whether we were ready for it or not. The pattern we've been waiting for is beginning to take shape. Stay tuned for updates as we track these systems. That's the forecast. Stay warm, stay